Yo, what up, y'all? This is Wax, and this is Wax's podcast, coming to you today from Venice Beach, California. It is beautiful outside today. It is approximately 70 degrees. Wind production is barometric pressure, and relative humidity pressure is at 69.7%, and we do have a rising wind from the northeast. It is a relative humidity. I don't know, man. I don't know what the fuck any of that meant, but I do know that it's very nice outside. And being a meteorologist in Southern California is probably one of the easiest jobs there is. That's why if you do watch a local news report and they have a meteorologist on there, it's generally just some really, really attractive woman. So at least that was true when I lived in San Diego. It is beautiful out here, as it always is. It's no different than normal. I actually walked around outside for a little while today because, you know, it's nice outside, and why not? It is Wax's podcast, episode 69. 69, man. Some of you might not know why I think that's funny, but we all know that 69 is a sexual position. If you don't know, it's a sexual position where both people are both giving and performing oral sex. That was supposed to be giving and receiving oral sex. Performing and giving are the same word, and I realized that, and in a rare moment in Wax Podcast history, I'm actually going to throw in a correction. Resume podcast now. And that is because they are faced in opposite directions. Not faced in opposite directions, they're turned in opposite directions. Their feet are pointed in opposite way of each other's feet, and they are actually facing towards each other as to give each other oral sex. I guess you could do... especially if you were really flexible, some kind of weird opposite 69. Maybe if you wanted to rub the person's asshole with the back of your head. that's got to be one of those sexual positions, you know, like the donkey punch and the dirty Sanchez and all that. I don't know what you would call that. I guess you'd call that the shithead. Maybe you call that the old back of the head anus rub. Isn't that a clever title for it? The back of the head anus massage. That's a clever sexual position title for what I just made up there. But no, it is episode 69, and even as you get older, it's still a funny number for some reason. I think the reason that it's funny is once you're old enough that you've done it a few times, actually participated in that sexual act. The funny thing about it, it's not necessarily funny why you're doing it, but what's funny is to initiate it. If you're with a girl, I definitely can say that I've never been in a situation where I've been, you know, doing whatever with a girl and she kind of like initiates that. She might initiate her part of it, but you kind of got to grab the other end of her and bring her around, so to speak. You know what I mean? But it is funny to initiate that shit. Like it'll literally make you giggle. Like if you kind of like have to grab her thighs backwards and put her into position to make that happen. But I digress. Let's get on to a more serious topic. I mentioned last week, this is the month of September. It wasn't yet last week, but I mentioned last week that I was going to be participating in what me and AK are calling Sober September. And it is September 3rd now, and let me tell you something. I haven't smoked a cigarette or drank a beer in these last 3 days, and neither is my friend AK. For anybody you wondering who AK is Andrew Krasinski. He does a lot of my music videos, and he's one of my really good friends out here. And he also is a heavy drinker and used to be a heavy cigarette. Well, he used to be a heavy cigarette smoker too. And me and him struggle. One of the reasons we're good friends is because we share the same struggle of trying to limit our drinking and eliminate completely. Not eliminate our drinking, but slow down, be slower, moderate our alcohol consumption, and eliminate our tobacco consumption. So, this is the third day. It's Monday, Tuesday, now it's Wednesday. And let me tell you something, I was going really hard, man. After this tour and during this summer, I built up my cigarette smoking level to probably the highest it's ever been. And I'm really feeling the effects of the withdrawals. I'm really feeling the nervousness, the shakiness, the tension. It gets to be nighttime, and I'm like, what the fuck do I do? For the first time in a long time, for some reason on Monday night, man, I don't eat fucking candy bars. I don't give a fuck. I just don't care about sweets. I will say that when I did the 100 days last time, I did, like I said on the podcast, I was kind of replacing cigarettes and alcohol at night with popsicles. But that wasn't really because I wanted popsicles. It was just to do something. But something happened this past Monday night, man. I had been drinking really heavy this Labor Day weekend, and then Monday night came along, and I just had this really strange craving for ice cream, which is something that never, ever happens to me. And I think it was just something about my nervousness and maybe the quick altering of my body chemistry, knowing that I couldn't have alcohol that night. I just wanted ice cream. So I went and got some motherfucking ice cream. You got a problem with that? Got a problem with me eating ice cream? Well, if you do, then you would have had a problem with me Monday night, because on that night I did in fact eat ice cream. And if you would have been over here and said something, I would have stabbed you in the eyeball with the fucking ice cream spoons. How do you like that? How do you like them apples? How do you like them fucking apples? I don't know what that even means. What was the initial? Why did somebody make up that phrase? How do you like them apples? And that's supposed to sound kind of like tough. Like, what kind of apples did the original person actually have that made them say, how you like them apples? Like, what kind of apples did you have? Did you have some type of amazing apples? Were you like, maybe that is a Adam and Eve reference. Maybe there's anybody in the story could have said that to Eve. You know, the satanic snake who recommended that she eat the apples right after she ate it probably was like, how you like them apples? Or maybe God was like, just curious, because, he never could have eaten, maybe Adam actually, he always wanted to eat the forbidden fruit as well, but he never did because he was too much of a bitch. And, he asked Eve, he's like, so how do you like them apples? Basically asking like, well, I mean, anyway, just out of curiosity, I know you've totally screwed the world and made it so we can't live in paradise anymore, and we're born as sinners, and without repenting we'll go to hell forever. But I was always curious about the taste of those things. I mean, I've never had an apple before. I wonder if that was like what he was saying. Anyway, okay. As I often do, I digressed. But as for Sober September, I told you last week at the very end of the podcast, I was like, you know what? We're going to dedicate this to Chandler. Chandler is friends of Dan from Baltimore, who is a friend of the podcast. And unfortunately, Chandler is no longer with us due to a car accident that was alcohol related. And we're especially here on Wax's podcast, we're officially saying that Sober September is in honor of Chandler, and me and AK are participating. Dan from Baltimore, who is friends with Chandler, is participating. Donna N is participating. Gail M is participating, and Pedro X from the 818. Shout out as well to his wife Allie from Sun Valley. That makes it for a total of 6 of us here on the podcast that are officially participating. Now, I didn't expect to, when I recommended at the end of the podcast, when I suggested that maybe you participate in Sober September with us, I didn't expect to get a lot of emails. Nobody really wants to go for a whole month being sober. A lot of people that I know think that it's crazy that I do things like this, and they always say like, oh, why don't you just drink like once or twice a week? And for me, it's kind of hard to do that. I don't know why. Maybe I'm an alcoholic. I don't know. Maybe it's not really that much of rocket science, but I kind of just start to drink more. Like if I tried to do that, I would end up just pretty much drinking every day. So what I'd like to do is just give myself a break for a long period of time and let my liver heal itself. And then I'm either going to be on or off. When it comes to drinking alcohol, yet again, as I say every time I do these little alcohol quitting things, I'm going to try to keep the cigarettes going forever. But regardless of what happens, I'm going 30 days, or I think it's 31 days in September. I don't know. Or is it 30 days in September? I never know how many days are in what month. But even after being alive this long, I can't remember simple details like that. Yeah, so I'm going to go for this month, try to rebuild up some of the damaged pieces of my lungs, some of the damaged pieces of my liver. I've heard that the liver is a really, I heard it heals itself really fast. What's the word I'm looking for? Not regenerates. It's really, I guess it's really regenerative. But that's not the word I'm looking for. It bounces back. What the fuck is that word? It's very, if you bounce back from a relationship or anything, there's this word. It's very and I'm sure a lot of you right now that are listening have the word and are just like, why can't you think of it? But you know what? Doesn't really matter what you're thinking because I can't hear your thoughts. So anyway, there's 6 of us. Me, AK, Pedro X, Dan from Baltimore, Donna N, and Gail M. And Donna N and Gail M are also friends with Chandler, who we're doing this in honor of. So today is day 3. Next week I'll be back, hopefully on day 10. I am recording this on a Wednesday, but I'll probably put it out on Thursday morning. Who knows? Maybe late Wednesday night. But trying to get this podcast back to every Wednesday. I am here every day at my house. The only responsibilities I really have for the next couple months is to work on music and do this podcast. So for me to not do it on time is pretty fucking pathetic. But what can I say, dude? I'm a lazy person. I've really started to realize that. It's strange because my goal, I've always loved making music, and my goal, when I was a kid, my goal was to be a rock star. Really, I wanted to be on MTV and shit like that. And I also just wanted to play music. That's what I did naturally. And same thing as I got to as I finished high school, my band on the East Coast was very active, and I just wanted to make it so we could do that for a living. By that time, I didn't really give a shit about being a rock star, even though, some of the benefits that came along with that would have been nice. But I really just wanted to not have a regular job, which I had to have at that time. Anytime before the last few years, before my YouTube years or whatever, I've had to have a regular job. And recently, I haven't had to have a regular job for a while because I've done pretty well with the music. I sell albums, I do shows, I get money in various ways because of the music and whatnot that I make. And my goal. I've had mad 9-to-5 type of jobs, and I always hated those jobs. And my goal was always to not have to do that. So I eventually was able to not do that, and now, at this point, after years of not having to have a 9-to-5 job, in my head, what I'm trying to make myself do is treat working on music and just working in general, whether it be on the podcast or music or just fucking anything besides being a lazy schmuck. I just need to really dedicate myself to doing it. I've just kind of discovered recently that I'm lazy. I think that I had more drive when I was working towards a goal. And now the goals are just kind of like, the goal is just to work, The goal, I don't really have some above and beyond grandiose goal. So what happens is I have so much that I could be doing or so little that I could be doing that I don't, I almost feel like I need a boss, I need some kind of boss to control me and, whip me into shape. And I think that I need to be somewhere besides my house for hours and hours every day. So what I'm looking to do is get a studio. I know I've done this before. I've had other places where I make music, but this time I want to have a studio where I go not just by myself. I'm going to go with my boy Davey, because whenever we're together, we actually work and we actually get stuff done. So I don't know why I'm telling you guys all this, but I'm a fucking lazy dude. And sometimes the most important thing to do when trying to fix yourself is to realize what is wrong with yourself. And what is wrong with me is I'm lazy. So I'm going to try to stop doing that, try to stop being lazy. I didn't mean to talk about any of this. Some of you guys are thinking, I don't know what you guys are thinking. I have no idea. What else is going on? Took a walk today. Took a walk down to the beach, wrote some lyrics while I was walking, had my headphones on. Had a nice a beat plan, wrote some raps today. What else have I been up to? This past weekend was Labor Day weekend, and it was also the last weekend before this whole Sober September thing. So I definitely went ham on the drinking, but I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun hanging out around here and doing shit in Venice. The reason that I moved here was because I love it here and I love walking around here and checking out all the sights and going to all the restaurants and whatnot. And this past weekend, I really behaved like a Venetian. So I'm happy that I did that. I had so many margaritas and beers and just festive foods of various types. We actually, on Sunday, me and a lot of my friends had like a barbecue type of situation at a park, and it was fun. Played some basketball, not even just shooting around, played some real ass basketball. The next day, I guess there's like certain muscles in your like upper bicep that you really only use when you're fucking playing basketball, and I just felt these crazy pains in my like left and right inner upper bicep. If you can picture that, like if you look down at the inside of your elbow, there's kind of a line that goes down towards the center of yourself. Right on that line, I had some kind of weird soreness. I guess you don't really use that muscle often. I don't really know. I don't know. This is kind of turning out to be a shitty podcast, I feel. It's kind of a shitty podcast. I probably, especially considering how much free time I have. Dude, if I fucking tried, if I wanted to, I could make this podcast so interesting. I could think of all these different things I could talk about. I could record little hilarious segments. I could write jokes. But I don't. I just hit record and just see what happens. You know what I did watch today, though? You know what I did watch because of somebody on the internet telling me to do so, because they had kind of a conspiracy theory in their head? Recently, as many of you know, there was a video put out supposedly by the group called the Islamic State. The Islamic State is basically the new Al-Qaeda, but they're the new, scarier, improved Al-Qaeda as far as putting fear into our hearts. And let me tell you something. They worked. It works. I mean, I saw the fucking piece that Vice did on them. Vice did a 5-part video series like inside of there. And, you know, it looked like legitimately some pretty scary dudes and some pretty whacked out ideologies that these people had. So, you know, it's a legitimate organization. They're doing their thing or whatever. But recently, there was 2 videos, one like a couple weeks ago and one like a couple days ago, maybe even yesterday it came out about these videos of them beheading these dudes. There was 2 American journalists that got caught a couple years ago over there by these guys, and then recently they put out these videos where they beheaded them. And, you know, my initial thought was I don't want to watch this video because... why would I want to watch? I actually made the mistake many, many years ago, like a little while after 9/11. There was actually a guy named Nick Berg who was beheaded on camera by some crazy motherfuckers over there, and I actually made the mistake of watching it, and it kind of fucked with me. It fucked with me to watch it. It made me just bothered me for days afterwards. You know, I just wish that I hadn't watched it. So I didn't watch these either. I did the last 2 videos they put out. You know, I kind of like saw a thumbnail of it. I'm like, I'm not gonna watch this dude get his head cut off, man. I don't need to watch that. I'm not into that. I don't like violent videos like that. Unlike my boy T-Rex, who loves watching shit like that because he's a fucking weirdo. So anyway, but I heard somebody talking about you should watch this, and I did just because it said that, you know, the actual beheading part wasn't even shown. So there's this guy, there's like an American guy, and he's in a fucking orange jumpsuit, which is already kind of strange. Why do these Islamic State dudes put these guys in orange jumpsuits as if they're prisoners in the American system? Is that what they do to all these dudes? They put everybody in orange jumpsuits? I don't know. But, you know, the dude starts talking. He's an American dude, and he's a journalist, and he kind of starts talking, addressing Obama and saying these things, but relatively calm and collected. I don't know what that phrase is. Calm and collected. Yeah. Yeah, I get phrases like that confused. I used to think, not calm and collected. What's that other one that's kind of like that? Whatever. Shouldn't even brought that up. Anyway. Yeah, so he talks for a while, and then the dude with he's got a relatively large knife, like a pretty big knife. You know, it's definitely not. If I was gonna cut somebody's head off, I would use a bigger knife. I'm gonna tell you that straight up. I would use a larger knife than this guy had if I was gonna cut somebody's head off. So then this dude starts talking, and it's a British dude. I knew from I had heard already that the first time it was a British dude, and everybody's confirming that this dude is the same dude. This dude is standing over the American dude, and he's in like a ninja outfit, basically, like an all black, cover everything ninja outfit. And like I said, he's got a relatively large knife. You know, like for cutting a steak, this would be a large knife. For cutting a human being's head off, I would actually consider this a relatively small knife of choice for that activity. Anywho, he says this little thing in his British accent, which I kind of think is strange. Call me crazy, but I kind of think it's strange. You know, they got them both mic'd up with lavaliers, so it's a pretty well-made video. They're cutting from camera A to camera B. And then he says his piece. And it's all kind of like fear shit, like, Obama, if you do this again, we're going to fucking kill every time you fuck with us. We're going to fucking behead a dude. And then he takes his fucking relatively large knife, and he goes over to the dude, and he fucking puts it to the guy's neck, and he starts kind of doing like a sawing motion. And granted, the whole time that this is going on, when he's walking over towards him, the American dude don't look scared at all. He doesn't flinch, nothing. And when he starts doing the sawing motion, you see zero blood come out. And then he kind of falls, the American dude kind of like, it looks like he falls back on purpose. And as that's happening, it just fades to black. And then when it comes back in, it shows, it starts at the American guy's feet. But it's as if the body was laying on the ground flat. And it pans over, and it's like, then you see his severed head laying on his stomach. It fades out again before it gets to actually where his severed neck is. Like, you never see his headless body. You see his body with the head on, but you never see, you know, the shoulders. You never see that area. It fades out beforehand. And, you know, I gotta be honest with you, man. If they were gonna fucking try to scare us for real with this shit, I just don't understand why they would do it that way. It's like, yeah, we're going to scare the shit out of these people, but don't show anything that's too bad. Don't show anything that's too bad. And it's like any other video that they do is like, they don't give a fuck. Like, they don't give a fuck. But shout out to Breezy Lovejoy on that. They don't give a fuck. That'd be funny if the ISIS started using that song as as their theme song. But nah. They've never given a fuck before. Any Islamic militant groups that have done beheading videos in the past, they make damn well sure that you know for an absolute fact that this motherfucker is getting his head cut off. I mean, the whole thing about the Islamic State is they would do that in the middle, like they have control of Raqqa, Syria. Now I will add the word supposedly to that. Now I'm adding that, yes, because I've never been there. I don't know what the fuck's really going on. This shit could all be on green screen. I don't know. But I will say that I do think this shit really exists, and I do think they have control of Syria. I don't think the Vice thing was. I don't think there was anything fake involved in the Vice thing. But yeah, they behead people right in public, right in front of everybody, and they leave this headless bodies right there. They have mass executions and all that, and like the whole thing is they want people to see it. So now it's very, very strange to me, and I know some of you guys out there are like, Wax, you're a fucking idiot. Wax, stick to rapping about people's moms. Stick to doing what you do best, which is usually something dumb like dressing up as a redneck and going out in the desert and talking about how you strangle bears or whatever you do. I get it. I understand. I understand why you would think that. You're an American. You think, why would somebody be lying to you about this? But just watch the fucking video. Just watch it. That's all I'm asking you to do is watch it. Trust, it's not gross. Don't be fooled by like, if you go to a news site and they have the video, which they usually don't even have, there'll be a thing that says like, oh, it's too graphic to watch. It's not graphic at all. This recent beheading video is not graphic at all. Trust me, it's not. They don't show a beheading. They just show like a dude like kind of about to get beheaded, and then they do show what is supposedly a severed head, which you don't even see the severed part, by the way. It's like as if they placed it in this weird way where you can't even see the severed part of it. But I just don't understand it, dude. And the reason, And they say don't watch it. Even the people on the newscast recommend that you don't watch it. And everybody recommends that you don't watch it because they don't want you to watch it. Because they know if you watch it, you'll be like, what the fuck? This is fake. I swear to God, the video looks fake, dude. And I don't know if it is. I don't know exactly, what the reasoning behind it is. I can think of a lot of reasons why somebody would fake it, to be honest with you. They're trying to instill fear in the public. They're trying to create another boogeyman. They're trying to get you scared so you can buy a bunch of shit. And so they can justify war, so they can go in and take the oil and have fucking complete control over it. And the 1% will have even more power than they already have over the 99% already. That's what I think is probably going on. There's some kind of, I don't know who controls the conspiracy theory. I will say that there's other people, and I say this because I know a lot of you guys think I'm fucking wrong, and I could very well be wrong. That's one thing about me. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the truth is, but I will say there was other people on the internet saying that the video was fake and saying that, oh, how would these dudes over there have the knowledge and professional ability to make a video like this? And I was like, are you serious, dude? Like, they can get 2 cameras and some lavaliers. It's not like this technology is not available in the Middle East right now. It's 2 shitty cameras, a fucking laptop with iMovie, and some lavaliers. I don't think that it's that professional that people over there couldn't get it. That being said, the fucking people the dude in the video is a British dude. You know what I'm saying? Why would they? I mean, I understand why they would pick a British dude because he can speak English so well as their guy. But if you watch this video, the shit looks fake to me. It looks like some shit. Looks like some shit people made with green screen or something like that. They put a fan out in front of them to make it look like it was windy. I don't know, man. I don't know. I do know that everybody believes it's real. If you look at a news site and look at the comments, all it does is make all these people in the comments say, like, we should go over there and kill all these motherfuckers. And, if it is a fake video, whoever made that fake video, the reason they made it is because they want everybody to say that. They want everybody to have this fear and this hate so they can justify whatever war they're gonna create, which is, of course, a way to gain control and a way to gain money, It's just crazy how the power structure in our country is fucking crazy, dude. It's just fucking nuts. Like these dudes, we were talking about this show that me and T-Rex were talking about the other night where these dudes were building castle-esque houses. Like this dude had like 20 acres in the Hamptons, he had like a 20-acre lake. He was building a castle and all this shit. And all these dudes, I don't even know what my point is. I'm not going to sit here and try to act like I know everything, but I do know that there's a ridiculous divide in our country between who has all the shit, whether that be money or power or both, and people who don't. And it's just interesting that things have turned out like that. And it just seems to me, with the way that the economy is and the way that jobs are, it seems like it's only going even more so that way. Everybody jokes about how we're all in debt. 50 years ago, the average American was not in debt. And now everybody's in debt. And if we all have all this credit card debt, all this student loan, all these car payments or rent payments, these payments are going to somebody. If everybody's like, oh, we're all in debt, that means, you can't all be in debt. Somebody is the person you owe the fucking money to, and especially with credit card debt, all these motherfuckers, I don't know. This podcast is stupid. I was kind of going from all over the place, and as usual, I'm talking about things that I don't even really know that much about. The only thing I do know is I'm in debt. You know what I'm saying? So I assume everybody is, and I assume there's some fucking guy. And when I assume this, I'm right. There is a lot of guys, and they live out on the Hamptons, and they have all the fucking money that we are paying every month for our credit card bill. It's going somewhere. You know what I mean? It's going to these crazy-ass banks. They just, they basically take $1 from everybody. And if you take $1 from everybody in America, and America has 300 or 400 million people, take $1 from everybody, you got $300 million. Bam. No problem. That's how it works in my mind. And also, that video was fake. Welcome to Sober September. Welcome to podcast episode 69. All right, I had to hit stop there. I had to hit stop right after I said that because I realized that I was on a fucking collision course. I was on a verbal collision course, and I was going just plummeting out of control, talking about things I don't really know about, just going left and right and just fucking careening down a hill. And that hill had all kinds of hazards. You know, it was like taking all the hazards from a golf course, but making them way much more dangerous and compacting them closer together and making the golf course so hole 1 was way up in the sky and hole 18 was directly below it, thousands and thousands of feet. And I was just verbally careening downward, and I was just hitting fucking water patches, thorn patches, out of bounds patches. And it became worse. There was poisonous snakes biting me. And as I got lower and lower, I was just burning and burning in fires and fires, and I just didn't know what I was talking about. So I had to hit stop. And much like this analogy that I'm making, it was fucking stupid. So I'm going to go ahead and go on to some shout-outs and some questions. Once again, reiterate, it's me, A.K., Pedro X from the 818, Dan from Baltimore, Donna N., and Gail M. doing Sober September. And I did forget to mention that I got an email from Anthony L. saying that he will be participating. I'm assuming maybe he's not a drinker, but he says he's not going to jerk off in September. So, Anthony L., hats off to you. We'll see how well you do with that. By the way, if you want to participate in Sober September with us, hit me up at beatsforwax@gmail.com. Incredibly, I am pretty much caught up. I'm as of a week ago. I'm really, really caught up on the emails now. So hit me up. Let me know if you want to participate, or if you just have a question, or you want to get a shout out, or you want to fucking make some kind of dumb comment, or if you want to make a recommendation on what kind of music people should be listening to, you got a good artist to recommend, or if you want to send me a beat you want me to rap on. But mostly this is for questions, or if you want to let me know you're participating in Sober September. That's beatsforwax@gmail.com. beatsforwax@gmail.com. You know what I never do, or I rarely do, is I tell you that if you go to wax.com and click on podcasts, there's a link in the podcast section of my website where if you want to buy something, you click it and you go to amazon.com. And then if you buy something from amazon.com, some really small percentage of it goes to me. It actually doesn't go to me. It goes to my brother. He set that up for me. That was originally the Herbal Tea Mixing Fund, but now his album is out. So there's like $20 in there now, I think. And if you want to help the podcast out and help me so I don't have to get one of those 9-to-5 jobs like I hate, just anytime you want to buy something on Amazon, it doesn't cost you any more. Just go to my website first and I get some small-ass percentage of it. And maybe email me if you have any recommendations for what I should do with that money, because I don't think I should keep it for myself. Maybe I'll give it to some kind of charity, or maybe I'll just give it to my brother for his diaper fund. As of right now, that's what I'm doing. Herbal Tea Diaper Fund. That's what I'm doing it right now. So click on that or whatever. Shout-outs. Shout-out Will O, Farrell M, Joseph R, Kiki, Cordless, Aaron I, Scuberto, Joanna S. in Dublin, TJL, Ethan in Fargo, Daniel B. from England, a.k.a. Do Baxter on Instagram. That's DOBAXTER. So follow Daniel B. from England on Instagram. He's a photographer, and he said if anybody wants him to do some work for him, let him know if you like his pictures. All right, Mad Myers, Mike the Electrician, Ed from Chicago. Let me give a real special shout out to my man Ed from Chicago. Ed from Chicago came to 3 different dates this summer on the Warped Tour, and he hooked me up with some treats. He hooked me up with mad crazy care package, if you will, at every single show, and it really, really relaxed us all, and it was nice. So you're the man, Ed. I appreciate that very much. The next is Josh T. When I say care package, I was talking about marijuana, by the way, because some of y'all are gonna think I'm talking about heroin or something. I was trying to mask the marijuana thing for some reason, because I know my mom listens to this, even though she already thinks I'm fucking nuts because of all the songs and all the other podcasts she's listened to. But I was trying to mask that Ed from Chicago gave me mad joints at 3 different shows on the Warped Tour. But I was saying Now I'm unmasking my speech because I thought maybe if I was trying to mask it, you'd be like, well, he wouldn't be trying to mask weed because he never tries to do that before. So he must be talking about heroin or some crazy shit. No, I don't do heroin. So, Ed, thank you for the marijuana. Josh T., Terrell the hockey player, Cato from Norway, Nick A. from Maryland, B. Willis, Geoff, Mary B. the OG, TJP, Mike W. from Canada, who recommend The Imperial. That's a song, The Imperial, by Static Selecta, and it features Black Thought, who goes the fuck in on that song. I was actually saying to Mike W. from Canada in my response to him, that's all the shout-outs for today, so I'm just going to go off on a tangent here. I was mentioning to Mike W. from Canada, he recommended this song, The Imperial, because I was talking about Black Thought last week, or 2 weeks ago maybe, but this song, it's Action Bronson, Royce the 5'9", and then Black Thought, and then the first two dudes do like their 16-bar verse, and then Black Thought just goes ahead and hits him with like 50 bars, and he definitely has a bar in there about him being in the top 5 and all this shit. But if the thing, what's going on with Black Thought from the Roots now? If you don't know who Black Thought is, he has this joint that he did on Tony Touch's thing called Thought Process, and then he has this freestyle he just recently put out while he was on the Sway in the morning show. And I feel like he's just going crazy right now, man. He's just trying to really show and prove right now, and especially because of the things he was saying on that song that Mike W. recommended, The Imperial. You all should go listen to that right now, because of what the shit that he was saying on that. I feel like, he's getting older. They've kind of already, the Roots have kind of already probably put out their best work. Like the last 2 albums they put out were kind of like. They're great albums, but they're like art albums, they're concept albums, and I feel like the Roots have probably put out their best material as a group, and I feel like Black Thought kind of thinks like, wait a second, history books have already kind of been written, and they're being almost finished right now as far as hip hop, and these motherfuckers don't understand. I kind of went under the Black Thought kind of went under the radar, and a lot of people don't understand that he's one of the illest, and I think he's like, wait a second, I still have some time to prove that I am one of the illest, and I think he's just kind of going on a little killing spree right now, and I hope that that's true because I'm really enjoying it, man. Black Thought is ridiculous, and he's just on a killing spree right now, so props to him. Not that he listens to this podcast or ever will, but you guys do, and you should all go check his shit out. I mean, damn, man, I was actually listening to, Spotify, man. If you type in the Roots on Spotify, you really just going down through their albums, you're like, holy shit, like these dudes really don't get the props they deserve. And some of their earlier work, especially that album, The Tipping Point. I mean, even Do You Want More, The Tipping Point, Phrenology, and like what was that one even before that joint? The real early one with that scat on it. I don't know, but even though a lot of the shit, a lot of the topics on their earlier work was pretty much like, yo, we the Roots crew, we the illest. Like that was usually what the topic of the song was, and I think that's why Black Thought doesn't give the props that he deserves. He never really got that personal, pretty much ever on his verses. So he just kind of like was one of those guys who, I'm trying to think of what's that bastard, Tim Duncan. He's like a Tim Duncan. He's like one of the greatest, but he kind of like is so he's just technically good, and he doesn't have like a lot of things that make you into him as a person. You know what I mean? So I think that's why he kind of goes under the radar, so to speak. But anyway, let's go on with the podcast. This is from Dree the Boss. Yo, Wax, I got an uninteresting fact for the podcast listeners. In podcast 67, around the beginning, you said that EDM was an acronym. A little known fact is that it's an initialism. Acronyms are pronounced as a word, such as NASA, National Aeronautics Space Administration. He put that in parentheses just in case I didn't know what that stood for, and I probably didn't, honestly. I thought it was National Aeronautical Space Administration. I don't know. An initialism is pronounced as a set of letters like EDM. Not bashing you because I just found this out a week ago. Now, Dree, if you remember from last week, Dree the Boss corrected me last week because I was talking about people's haircuts at the Warped Tour, and they have those like Macklemore, what I call like military Elvis / like Hitler Youth kind of haircuts. And he made sure to email me and be like, dude, they're just called fades. So I'm Dree the boss. I'm gonna start calling him Dree the corrector. He's gonna kind of, I guess, be emailing me now and letting me know about little mistakes I made. This one being one of them. So he's saying that EDM is not an acronym. I guess it would only be an acronym if you said EDM. I did not know that, but I understand what he's saying. So like, cream, cash rules everything around me. That is an acronym. But if you just said CEREAM, that's just an initialism. So, excuse me, smarty pants. No, I'm just fucking with you, man. I appreciate the knowledge that I have now gained. Thanks to you, Dree the boss. Although I must say that from now on, whenever you email me, I'm going to read your emails in a really nerdy voice. It's an acronym. It's not. It's actually an initialism, not an acronym. Acronym is like NASA, the National Aeronautics Space Association. And when you look it up on your computer, when you log into Google, you can find it on your computer. You'll simply find that you have the inappropriate definition for that term. The term is actually a different type of word, a different phrase altogether. So that's how I'm going to be reading your emails from now, Dree. But I appreciate it, man. I think if you continue to do that, it'll probably be an interesting addition to the podcast. So, hey. Who is this from? I got another email here. Oh, this is Garrett. Sup, dude. This is from Garrett. I don't have a last initial, just Garrett. I just listened to podcast 64 through 65 while playing EOM's Further album in the background. Shit just fit together perfectly. Like, it gave the whole experience a refined classic hip-hop feel, and it was hypnotic regardless of what you were talking about. I seriously think you could level up the podcast if EOM DJ'd up some ambiance for an episode or two. Hearing EOM beats plus your talk about Warped Tour basically felt like MTV Cribs, but 100 times more interesting. Wow, thank you. You guys should fuck with that. Oh, wait, that's from Aaron the Violinist. I'm sorry, I mixed two things up. That was from Aaron the Violinist. And yeah, Aaron, I think that's interesting that you say that. I agree with you. Garrett, for EOM to have original beats for an hour every week would be really difficult. But maybe I could actually figure out a way to just put some kind of low instrumental hip hop music in there. Let's do a poll for this. I think there might be some people out there who just like having the voice. Maybe some people would rather have some low instrumental in the background. So this is what I'm going to do. Whenever I put out the podcast, I always put it up on the web. I post it on Twitter and I post it on Facebook, but it mainly lives kind of on my website. And under the podcast, there's a comment section. So let's make it like a poll. In the comment section, just put like, would you rather have instrumentals? Just put no instrumentals, or put, yeah, I'd rather have instrumentals, or, fucking answer yes or no in whatever way you want to. And if I get enough yeses, I'll start doing that. So, all right. Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate that. Always good to hear your feedback, man. One more. This is Sup Big Wax. Name's Garrett, and I'll keep this short. Been a big fan since your early YouTube videos. I've been listening to your podcast in the car, and it's definitely keeping me entertained. Here's a question. Do you have any family road trip stories? Keep on making great music, and I hope to go to a show one day. Oh, well, thanks for the compliments on my music. And this is one of those questions where, yesterday I actually went through some emails and caught up really well, by the way, like I said earlier. But so if you email me, I should read it much sooner than I used to. It used to take me like months to read somebody's email because I'd just be going through in chronological order. But now I'm pretty well caught up. So the problem with this email is I was like, oh, I'll answer this one. And I was thinking, by the time I answered it on the podcast, I would have thought of a funny family road trip story. That's what he asked me. Do you have any family road trip stories? And I figured, I'll just copy this question down in my little list of questions that I'll read on the podcast, and by the time I read it, I'll have one. But I don't. No, I don't. And but I will say this: the reason that I thought I would have a funny story is because when I was a kid, my family did in fact take many road trips. My family, shout out to my mom. I mentioned you earlier when I mentioned that I thought you'd be reading that thing where I said I'd had weed. But when we did not have weed was on the various family road trips that I took as a child. And I just want to mention, if you're a parent, or if you're going to be a parent, or if you're getting older and you might be thinking about parenthood or whatever, I highly recommend that when you are raising your children, especially from when they're age, 4 until their age 14, I would highly recommend taking like summer vacations, man. Save the money. I know that's easier said than done, but save the money. Take a little bit of time off work. Even if it's not that far, but preferably, man, at least once or twice. Take them somewhere far, man. Get in the car and just drive. Because I really like. We took a lot of road trips. I remember the main one when I was like 10. We actually drove in our family car. All of us. We drove all the way from Maryland to Yellowstone Park in a car. With a bunch of 10-year-olds. I can't even imagine doing that now. Like, imagining being a parent and taking my family on that type of trip. I mean, I take that type of trip all the time. That's like going on tour. And I can't imagine doing that with a family, especially when you don't even have a show at night or work to do. But I feel like it's really important for when a kid is young to open up their minds to the fact that the world is large, I think a lot of kids, even people that I know that still live in the same town I'm from. Not saying there's anything wrong with staying in the same town, man. Home is home, but I feel like a lot of people, they get comfortable with where they're at. So much so that like they talk to me like I made this crazy, like, oh my God, you moved, you're so ballsy. I can't believe you had the balls to move to California. That's crazy. I could never do something like that. And I'm. Of course, maybe I'm just an asshole and I don't care enough about spending time with my family. That could be very well possible. I'm selfish. I'm trying to be a fucking star. Everybody look at me. I'm on stage. Please clap for me. Please, I need your claps. Please. Maybe that's the problem. But I think part of it, too, is that some people at a young age didn't really get exposed to the fact that there is a lot of stuff out there. Some people never leave their town. I know I've met people recently, like even my boy Frank. Shout out to Frank if you're listening. Say Word Up podcast. Go download that shit. It's the best podcast out there. My boy Frank hosts it. But my boy Frank grew up here in L.A. And a couple years back, he went on tour. He was the merch guy when me and EOM went on tours a few years back as the opening. Well, we were supposed to be co-headlining, but we're pretty much the opening act for Hoodie Allen a couple years ago. That was a really funny tour. But it was just the three of us. It was me and EOM performing and him. It was just the three of us. We went in my car. And he had never been outside of California before. He said one time he went to Arizona, and he was like 23 or 24 at the time. And, I just thought that was wild, man. And no offense to anybody in his family for not taking him there, but I feel like when I was a kid, and especially that trip, we went so far, just knowing you can drive and drive and drive and go so far and see all these places where people look different and people are doing different things and the landscape look different. And some people live in the city, then some people live in the country, then there's fucking Buffalo. We went through South Dakota and we saw the Black Hills and we just saw all these different things. And I think it really changed me, man. I've always been kind of a traveling person. Even when I was 20 years old, I actually went on a trip for a car trip in America. I went all by myself. I just went all around the country by myself. Grand Canyon to San Francisco to San Diego to Florida to all over the place. And I feel like, I don't know, for some reason I like doing stuff like that. And I feel like I was really opened up by that trip my parents took. And I don't, maybe that's a bad thing. I don't know. Maybe you should never take your kids anywhere, but I don't know. I think knowing that the world is a big place and knowing that it's really not that big of a deal to go from place to place. It's not like it's some scary thing like you're Jim Carrey in The Truman Show and you can't go across the bridge out of whatever the fuck town that was called in The Truman Show. All right, there's some kind of, I don't know if there's a truck backing up. It sounds more like the smoke detector at an adjacent house is going off. Hopefully that'll stop soon. But until then, you might have to kind of hear that annoying sound in the background. I'm assuming you can hear that in the background. As soon as I said that, it stopped. Yeah. Yay, fucking yay. So what the fuck was I talking about? Yeah, I think road trips are important, dude. I don't have any good stories off the top of my head. But, I guess that's a story in itself. When I was 10, me, my brother, my sister, my dad, my mom, We all went all the way across the country. Went all the way to Yellowstone Park. God damn! Shut that fucking alarm off. Hey! Some dickhead backing up out there. All right, we got one more question. This one is from. God damn it. That doesn't. It's a thing backing up, but that was a really weird it was way too high pitched to be one of those back up in reverse because I have a big car thing. It was way too high pitched for that. It sounded more like a fire alarm, and it also sounded just like it was piercing my eardrums. And you know what? I didn't like it that much. But this is from Ciaran, Ciaran, Ciaran O.B., O apostrophe B. So, of course, he is from Glasgow. What up, Wax? I'm a huge fan of all your shit. Well, I appreciate that, man. Seeing you when you came to Glasgow and requested you draw a dick on my ticket, which you were kind enough to do. If you recall, you might get that request more. If you recall, you might get that request more often than I'd expect, though. I have no idea how much it comes up. Well, I'll tell you something. I don't usually get people asking me to draw a dick on their ticket, so I think that that request does not come up often, and you might actually be one of the only people that ask me to draw a dick on their ticket. I think that maybe I've drawn dicks when somebody's like, "Why don't you draw something on there?" And I've drawn a dick just to fuck with them, but you might be the only person that has actually officially requested me to draw a dick on their ticket. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know. But it was fun playing in Glasgow, man. Jesus. Glasgow was one of the coolest places I've ever been. We actually spent like 3 days in Glasgow. And what an amazing city, dude. What an amazing city. What funny people, and what a great accent, and just what a cool attitude everybody has over there. Anyway, yeah, man, that was fun. That was a really fun show. We did that joint on the day before, I don't know, the day after Halloween, and we got to hang out there for Halloween. Me and EOM actually went and saw Mad Lib. He did a show on Halloween where his show was in a warehouse, and he did a DJ set that started at 2 a.m. That was one of the coolest experiences of my life, absolutely. I hope I get to come back to Glasgow. Anyway, I started listening to the podcast about 3 months ago and started from the first episode. I caught up with you around episode 58, and this is my first time emailing in. Well, thanks for listening, man. Keep up the podcast, man. I fall asleep to it pretty much every night. It's hilarious, insightful, and just great entertainment. Also, do you have a file for the Scrub Life song, or do you remember what ep it was in so I can cut it out as a song? No, I don't have a file for that just yet. I'm really not supposed to even give that out because it's somebody else's track that I shouldn't be giving out. I just wanted to do a special thing for just the people on the podcast, so don't tell nobody about that joint. This will be super long, so if you want, you can just read it out from here, where the actual question is. Oh, he's saying I didn't have to read all that shit that I just read. Have you ever tried DMT? What do you think about the supposed redefining of one's concept of consciousness and the idea that it may be a route to new planes of reality, completely unlike any other psychedelic experience? If you've never done it, would you consider it? And can I get a shout out to Garth Marenghi and Mr. Actually Wilson? Well, yes, shout out to Garth Marenghi and Mr. Actually Wilson. Peace to y'all. Thanks for listening. I don't know if one of them is you, Ciaran, or not, but let's get to your question. I have never tried DMT. For those of you guys that don't know what DMT is, I don't know what it stands for, but I will tell you it's an initialism and not an acronym, because if it was called DOOMT, it'd be an acronym, but it's not. DMT stands for I don't remember what it stands for, but I did see that documentary about it. And if you're not familiar with it, it's a psychedelic drug, but it's like a psychedelic drug that goes further than like some of the like mushrooms or acid. I think it's like kind of like you go way outside of your consciousness, and according to people that have done it, some people say that you learn things about reality that you would never be able to learn if you'd never done this drug. Essentially saying that it takes you to like these places, like you see like beings, and a lot of people say that these beings are creating reality and sometimes even creating love, and it just makes when you come back, a lot of people say that you've learned A, maybe what the meaning of life is, B, maybe just more about what reality is. C, you're just more in touch with the world, and it's just an experience where a lot of times, you know, you kind of like discover a new plane of reality, as you actually put it. And you asked me if I would ever try it, and it's interesting that you say that, because I was just telling somebody the other day that any drug that I have any interest in at all in trying, I've already tried, except this one. This is the only drug that I've never done that I actually would do. And I'm sorry again, Mom, because I know that you think that drugs are bad and everything, but I think that with this one in particular, just because of all the crazy shit I've seen about it, I would take a hit. And supposedly, you know, I've actually seen, you can see on YouTube people doing DMT, and they basically take a big ass hit out of a pipe. It's like something you smoke, and then for like 15 minutes they just sit there still, and then like after 15 or 20 minutes they just kind of come to, and people see some shit. You know, I got to imagine there's probably better DMT and not so good DMT. I think this is the same kind of drug that's basically the same active ingredient that's found in ayahuasca. But supposedly, you know, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know what reality is. I think it's absolutely insane that what the fuck is our point of being here? Like, human beings are these complicated creatures, and we all have our own consciousness, and like I am me and you are you, and there's billions of us, and we walk around and be ourselves, and we have miles and miles of capillaries and all this shit inside of us, and we're somehow on this sphere where like everything is actually one. You know, we're fucking it up, but really like it's just this cycle where water goes here and then water goes there, then water becomes this, then water becomes that, and it's just this cycle where everything just recycles itself, and just all this life. So to say that just is what it is, and it just kind of randomly, haphazardly became that, and then we as human beings feel all these emotions and do all these things, and we reproduce and we marry, and I just think to believe that there's no possible way that maybe one of these plants, by ingesting these plants, we can get to a higher level of consciousness. To think that that's impossible is ridiculous to me, especially to think that that's impossible while at the same time you think that there's a God above, and he had a virgin on earth had his baby that, you know, ended up doing all this shit. You know, there's a lot crazier things to believe than to believe that if you eat something that comes from the earth, it will give you a trip that would provide you insight into why the earth exists and to why we exist on the earth and what our purpose of being on the earth is. So yeah, absolutely, I'd try DMT. I think one day I will. I don't really even know where to get that shit, but yeah, you know, I think that in some cases, doing something once like that. I mean, I have friends that have done mushrooms and say it changed their life for the better forever. You know, I have a friend that said all through his life he was angry. As a child, he used to break things, and he had to go to therapy for anger management. He had issues because he felt abandoned by his dad, and he was just fucking angry, and he was really bad in school because he even had issues in elementary school where he would push and shove the teachers. And then his first year in college, he ate mushrooms for the first time, and he ate a pretty good amount, and he just saw some shit that changed his life forever. And ever since that day, he's just realized that he's alive to create music, and he's a loving person, and he's not angry anymore because of some shit that happened to him. And he'll tell you straight up that that's why. So I'm not, you know, especially with the psychedelic drugs, the things that, and especially with things like mushrooms that just grow up. Like some mushrooms grow out of cow shit in one night, you know? They just things that grow from the earth. There's like the strange combination of this stuff on the earth. Like that's all this is. This big ball of just like stuff that really just regurgitates itself into another form, you know, hydrogen and fucking, you know, oxygen or whatever. And it just all comes out into these weird little combinations that become different things. And when it becomes one thing, maybe you can eat it and it get too close. I don't fucking know. You can't sit here and tell me that you know. You know what I mean? Nobody can. And you know, there's definitely been science saying that these things could possibly lead to other dimensions that we don't know, but I don't fucking know. But I think you get the point. My point is, yeah, man, let's get fucked up. That's not my point at all, but I think you know what I'm saying. If not, that's your fault, not mine. Because I always, as you can tell by this podcast in particular, I always make every point that I make is documented with fact after fact after fact that's cited. It has another citation behind that after bibliography after bibliography after bibliography. Everything that I'm talking about today on this podcast, I planned all week. All week, all I did was painstakingly outline in graphic and fucking just detail after detail of every word. Every word that I said in this entire podcast was written down beforehand. And if it sounds natural, that's just because I wrote like natural pause in parentheses every once in a while. And then when earlier in the podcast where I said I was having a shitty podcast, that was all written too, because I didn't want to make everybody feel like I had planned this whole thing out. So I actually wrote down to say that as well. It's not like what do you think? I just sit here and talk into a microphone without thinking about it at all? Is that what you think? Because that's definitely not what I do. I plan everything out painstakingly. I really do think that if I took, besides the time that it takes me to answer the emails, that actually does take a while. But if I took fucking 10 minutes every day and just wrote down some thoughts, I could make my podcast, and maybe even had some segments. Maybe had somebody to help me, just not to help me, just to call me every day and be like, yo, do something. But if I took 10 minutes every day, I could make my podcast 100 times better. And I'm always waiting to, like, I don't really promote my podcast very well because I know that people that have never heard it will hear it and be like, A, they'll probably be like, this sucks. B, they'll be like, this is boring. C, they'll be like, what is this? What is it? Who is this guy and what the fuck is he talking about? And ever since the first podcast, I've always been waiting for like the one good one that I make, the one week where I decided to put in real effort, and it's just awesome. I'll tell everybody to listen to it, and this is the awesome one, and then it'll be such a good response that I'll be motivated to make the podcast awesome from there on out. I always tell myself that that's going to happen, and it never does. I'm 69 episodes in, and hasn't happened yet. So maybe this is how it's meant to be. Getting deep with the DMT discussion before. Is there really even how anything's meant to be? Is that even really a pointful? Can you say pointful? Because if it didn't have a point, it'd be pointless. But it's actually pointful. Is there a point in saying? Is there a point at all in saying that something was as it was meant to be? Everything is meant to be as it is. It's not like something happens and then like, oh, that was done incorrectly. It just was done as it is done, and time goes on, and everything that I just said, I can't take back. It's already been said. So yeah, that's what I think. Maybe next week I'll come through and have an amazing podcast. Maybe I won't, but you'll have to tune in next week to see. So until then, be safe out there.